Good evening. No. I'm Martijn Andrea, and today I chair the Planning Committee, which consists of 9 elected borough councillors, supported by a range of professional officers. It's the committee's responsibility to determine a planning application using current national and local planning policies and other relevant planning consideration. Firstly, the planning officer will present the application, and then only those speakers who have registered to speak will be invited to address the committee with a strict time limit of 3 minutes. Once the presentations have been made, the committee will discuss and debate the application, seeking clarification from the council's professional planning officers where necessary. We can only focus on the proposal before us and only take into account what are considered material planning considerations. We welcome members from the public to attend these meetings. I would like to point out that members of the public, either supporters or objectors to the application, are not permitted to address the committee outside of the allocated public speaking section for each item, or to ask questions, interject, or clap during the meeting. Planning proposals can often generate strong opinions, both for and against the development. But the committee business needs to be conducted in a professional and orderly manner without interruption from the public gallery. As chair, if there is disturbance from the public gallery, in accordance with point 5.25 of the Council Constitution, I have the discretion to, if needed, take a number of steps, which include removing the individuals from the meeting and clear parts of the gallery. Today we will discuss 4 applications. All 4 applications have been included in the emerging local plan update. But first we start with apologies. Any apologies? No apologies. And then the minutes of previous meeting. Can I see, does everybody agree with that one? Any declarations of interest? Catherine?
Well, it's sort of a declaration of non-interest. I was councillor for Shinfield South, which covers the areas of the second 2 applications, until 2024, which was before they were submitted. But I have been present at Shinfield Parish Council meetings in my capacity as councillor for Spencerswood and Swallowfield, and I haven't taken any part in any part of those conversations at those meetings, and I've still got an open mind on the applications, as they're not in my ward.
Applications deferred or withdrawn. Then we start with the first application, which is application number 251421, land at the Old Forest Road in Winnish. And we'll start with Ben.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening all. This is application 251421 to land at Old Forest Road. This is a full planning application for the proposed erection of 53 dwellings, 40% of which will be affordable houses and associated infrastructure. The application site, as the Chair has helpfully referred to, does form part of a local plan allocated site. Therefore, it is earmarked for residential development within our emerging local plan. Development of the site would logically extend the northern settlement limits of Wokingham to the man-made boundary of the Northern Distributor Road. This is reflected again in the emerging local plan, with the proposed major development location of Wokingham to be extended to the north to encompass the entirety of the site. Major development locations, by their virtue, are areas that the spatial strategy seeks to place development, given their sustainability credentials and connections to the strategic transport network. Our current positive weight is afforded to the fact that the site does fall within the emerging local plan. Turning to the site layout, as mentioned, 40% of all of the dwellings on site will be affordable housing. This has been secured through negotiation between the applicant and officers, and a variety of house types are proposed to achieve this, including much needed 3-bedroom dwellings, which will be for both affordable rent and shared ownership over the 21 dwellings proposed to be affordable housing. The 53 dwellings on site, again, a large variety of house types, which supports cohesive communities, from 1-bedroom apartments to larger detached dwellings, organized to the left-hand side of your screen or to the west in a perimeter block formation to achieve positive urban design. And to the east of the site, we have more linear form to positively respond to the northern distributor road. A logical edge to the site, falling on the west perimeter, are 2 apartment blocks, which are a character feature of the area within Wayside and the run-up to the connecting roadway. The site positively interacts yet again to the NDR, which at current is relatively under-surveilled. Development of site provides this active and passive surveillance for users of the joint pedestrian and cycle way. As per the emerging local plan, there are several criteria within policy SS14.20 which directly relate to the sites. One of these are a preference for access along Old Forest Road. Now, as shown current, the application has successfully achieved this with a safe access in highway terms, which has raised no objection, visibility displays that work, and a dedicated pedestrian footpath to the east of the site. Along with the access location itself, 2 pedestrian connections are proposed, one to the north of the site, again to meet one of the requirements of the emerging local plan, which is a pedestrian connection, cyclist connection to the Old Forest Meadows Sang to the north. Yet again, the application successfully achieves this. To the south, there is one more connecting footpath to the remainder of the allocated site, given the application in front of you this evening, members, does not amass the entire portion of the allocation. Turning to arboricultural matters, there is a very limited amount of tree loss on the site, which again has been reduced following successful negotiation between officers, trees and landscape and the applicant. 5 living TPOs will sadly be lost from the development. However, mass scale retention of trees, as you can see with the green dots on the screen up there, they are very much retained, and the site benefits from a high quality landscape character which will be retained, albeit in a more residential setting. Just to conclude this section, no objections have been received from WBC Trees and Landscape, who consider a proportionate tree planting schedule can successfully be achieved on site in principle, and tree protection, tree retention, and the provision of hard and soft landscaping are secured by planning conditions. Turning to the elevational form and street scene, this variety of house types comes true yet again, providing this natural surveillance onto the NDR, which, as covered, was missing at current. The dwellings are well articulated, and further details are secured by condition to map in the exact material types. However, this is a positive addition to the street scene, albeit the development as a whole quite reasonably would result in a degree of harm, given it inevitably loses a green field. However, when undertaking a tilted balance, the benefits of the proposal are not overridden by the limited negatives. Turning to the CGIs, just to visualize what we can see, this is actually the access point here. At current, the rural track, which serves the open field, a classic agricultural access, does not benefit from notable surveillance. And again, the introduction of residential form provides clear views of this area to make it safe or increase the perception of safety for cyclists, pedestrians, and those utilizing the site. While some concerns were noted by residents on the basis of apartment blocks, again, these are very well articulated elevations put forward with recessed elevations, projecting elevations, which breaks up that bulk and mass. And again, having that logical stopping point is a very positive urban design term, namely in that the side elevations provide clear views onto open space, which is one of the key spatial points within the National Design Guide. The elevations are well composed and no objections are formed as to what is proposed on site. In line with the above, the officer's recommendation is to grant planning permission, subject to conditions and informatives listed within the committee report. The completion of an associated Section 106 agreement, which is an advanced stage at current, or alternatively to authorise refusal of permission in the event of the Section 106 legal agreement not being completed within 6 months or with an extension otherwise agreed by officers on behalf of the head of development management. Thank you so much for listening. Cheers.
Thank you, Ben. Can we now invite the first speaker, Imogen? You have 3 minutes. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Imogen Shepherd Bay, and I'm here on behalf of Wokingham Town Council this evening. While we as Town Council do not object to having housing built at this location, we do have significant concerns about the access to and from this site for the incoming residents and the residents who are already living close to this location. Old Forest Road was built as a rural country lane. It does not have any proper pavements, and its street lighting is not what you would expect for an urban location. And we must insist that the road is improved for the new residents moving in and the children walking to the local schools. For clarity, Old Forest Road does not have any pavements of full lengths on either side. The pavement is barely wide enough for one person and is not wide enough for prams, wheelchairs or anyone to pass without stepping into the road. There is not street lighting all the way along, and the road is not enough of it to keep people safe when walking in the area. The Old Forest Road site of where the schools and the shops are located. It will be used by children living on this new estate and walking to and from school and anyone walking to town. While I understand there is a preference for development sites to be close to the urban areas, it does, however, require that the rural aspects need to be upgraded so that these sites are properly connected. I note that there is a response from the officer saying there are access to the north and the south of the site for pedestrians. Well, that's not very useful, as Old Forest Road lies to the east, and that is what needs to be improved. As for vehicle access, it was expected that the access to this site would be primarily via the new link road on the western side, as CP20 suggests. Any suggested vehicle access via Old Forest Road needs to be wide enough for both pavements and cyclists. Otherwise, how are residents expected to move safely in and out of the site? The proposed route does not meet this very basic need. The application is causing great concern to the local residents, mainly because it's seen that the Old Forest Road is to be the main vehicle access point, but it's not getting the necessary improvements that this access road should have, and it should not only be the only access point for vehicles. The application suggests there is a shared walking and cycling facilities are present along the Northwest Distributor Road, Toutley Road, which is lovely, but for most residents on foot, they'll be heading in the most direct route, i.e. via Old Forest Road and not the new roads. Policy CP1, CP4, CP6, CP9 and CP11 of the CS permit development where it is based on sustainable credentials in terms. Well, this is not any of these. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you, Imogen. Could I now ask Mr. Mallet to come forward? Mr. Mallet is on behalf of the residents. You have 3 minutes, Chris.
Thank you, everybody. I'm talking on behalf of the Embrook Residents Association, who represent hundreds of affected residents of this application. I'm also spokesperson for neighbouring residents more directly affected, a number of who are behind me. Last week, we provided you more detail of our objections due to the limited time we have today. Let me start by saying we do not object to the development in principle. Our primary objection is to the applicant's decision to access the site off Old Forest Road, rather than using an existing access on the North Distributor Road. Firstly, I turn to Wokingham's core strategy. CP20 states it is important that development north of the town is accessed from a distributor road. The NDR was approved based on documents which stated it was key to accessing developments over the next 10 years and mitigating impact on existing residents. Planning say we are confused and that CP20 is wholly unrelated to this application. Let me assure you there is no confusion. The site only exists because of the NDR construction, and CP20 established the basis for new developments in this area and construction of the NDR. Far from being unrelated, it is evident that approving this application would ignore clear intent of the core strategy, which provides the framework under which planning decisions should be made. It would represent a breach of CP20 and CP6E and override key protection for Embrook residents who have already been significantly impacted by development. Planning suggests directing access from the NDR falls outside the remit of the planning system, but they've already directed the applicant to modify their proposals to provide cycle and pedestrian access to the NDR. Planning also mislead saying land between the NDR and the site is owned by a private third party. It is owned by Wokingham Borough Council Estates, who have already approved pedestrian and cycle and construction access. I now turn to the suitability of the proposed access road. We've identified multiple non-compliances. Non-standard road width is in unsuitable priority and traffic calming measures to address collision concerns raised by us and by highways. And highways have failed to consider the risk of collision when two larger vehicles pass each other. Consequently, the access road is not functional, accessible or safe and fails to comply with CP 110 and CP6 G&H. Landscapes failed to interrogate the applicant's assessment of protected trees, made incorrect statements about the nature of the TPOs and did not respond to our expert report. Without proper consideration, there is a substantial risk of breaching TPOs. We've also shown remaining trees cannot be protected without compromising access to existing properties. Highways and Landscapes failed to investigate, instead relying on planning conditions. The applicant says, we believe that the gradients are achievable. We believe is not good enough, nor is relying on planning conditions, and failure to consider will likely result in the road that does not meet adoptable standards. The applicant and Highways have also failed to consider the safety of vehicles exiting East Houtley Hall. We consider the lack of visibility and risk of collision means the access road fails to comply with CP6 G&H. We also consider a failure to include residents in pre-application consultation, during which the applicant confirmed that the access road was ruled out was a breach of Wokingham Borough Council's statement of community involvement.
Chris,
and suggestions.
can you finish?
I'll be 2 seconds if that's okay. Process is confidential and not responsible. It means shutting down opportunities to influence. Finally, I raise an objection about unacceptable loss of privacy to existing properties due to windows and balconies on side elevations of flat 2. This is not compliant with the Borough Design Guide, which requires privacy in rear gardens. Planning also advised, by the way, at pre-application stage, that windows would not be permitted in...
Sorry, I have to ask you to finish now.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris,
we
because,
urge the committee to reject this application due to non-compliant.
Gentlemen, can you just conclude, because I've been counting the minutes over. I was advised to check to give the other party.
I was just making my concluding statement there. So my concluding statement is we urge the committee to reject this application due to non-compliant access provisions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Mrs. Unsworth. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jo Unsworth and I'm the planning agent acting on behalf of Elstree Land. We fully support your officer's recommendation to approve this application, which would form a logical and highly sustainable extension to Wokingham. The scheme would deliver 53 high-quality homes for local people. The affordable housing mix is viable and deliverable and is supported by your housing officers. The application site is identified in the local plan update as suitable for development. It has been brought forward in advance of the LPU's adoption in order to contribute towards meeting the current housing land supply shortfall. And as your officer's report notes, it's a full application with the interest of a registered provider already secured, so it can make an immediate and meaningful contribution to the land supply. The LPU notes that the preferred access to the site is from Old Forest Road, and this has been demonstrated to be a safe and appropriate access in highway terms. Importantly, the Highways Officer is not raising any objections to the application. The applicant does not own the land between the site and Toutley Road, and thus cannot secure a permanent access to the development from there. However, in light of neighbours' comments, negotiations have been held with the intermediary landowner and have agreed for a temporary access for construction traffic away from the existing residents. Regrettably, some tree losses would result from the scheme proposals, but these are limited to category B, C or U trees, and their loss would be mitigated via the planting of a substantially greater number of replacement trees. All category A trees, the most valuable, would be retained and would benefit from long-term management. The tree officer is content with this approach and raises no objection to the application. Indeed, there are no applications from any of the technical consultees. In considering this application, the tilted balance is engaged. The principal harms identified by officers are limited to the technical conflict with the spatial strategy in the adopted local plan, which arises only because the LPU is not yet adopted, and the loss of some TPO'd trees. But the scheme will deliver a number of very significant benefits, which all weigh heavily in favour of the scheme. These include the immediate contribution that the site can make towards housing delivery in the borough, the provision of 53 high-quality, energy-efficient houses, which will bring the benefit of lower energy bills and running costs for future residents, delivery of 21 affordable homes, the highly sustainable nature of the site, provision of over £2 million in SIL funding and substantial Section 106 financial contributions, and policy compliance in respect of all technical disciplines. These together amount to clear and compelling benefits. We therefore hope you can support these proposals in line with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the final speaker is Chetna, the ward member. You have 3 minutes, Chetna.
Good evening. I'm Chetna Jamte. I am the councillor at Rockingham Borough Council. Prue wanted to come to this meeting, but because she's a trustee of the charity that owns the adjacent land, so she couldn't come to this planning meeting. I understand that this site is on the local plan, and I have no objections to it. I think I have 2 objections that I wanted to raise. The first objection is about the access road, and it's a non-standard width. So as I understand that the WC highways appear to have satisfied that the vehicles can pass each other with the same swept path analysis provided by the developer. However, the swept path analysis does not consider 2 large vehicles, delivery vehicles. And this is a clearly a likely scenario that we therefore assert that highways failure to require that scenario to be modeled means that the proposed access is not functional or safe. So the core strategy CP 110 applies. So I strongly said that this application does not provide a scheme where the access arrangements are either functional or safe on the reasons noted. The second objection I have is around removal of the protected trees. So I understand that I was shown that a number of trees are being retained, but we are still removing 5 trees which are under the provisional TPO. So I mean, as I said, is that this is something, as a borough councillor from Vinesh Ward, I am actually not happy about it to lose those 5 trees in order to, have that access to be created. So these are my 2 objections that I wanted to be considered by the planning officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chetna. Okay, I'll now open the debate. Who wants to start? Sam, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, one of the speeches that we heard and sort of reading this application is that I've noticed that this site is included in the upcoming local plan update, right? So just from the officer's point of view, how much weight do we give to that? Well, I appreciate it's not in there right now, but that it has got allocation to the LPU. So just keen to understand that and legally how that works.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it's not purely determinative. Positive weight, of course, is afforded, and different parts of the ELP command different weight. And that should be detailed within the committee report, but it's a mixture, to be candid with you. But that in itself should not be determinative of a decision, and the merits of the application really do justify itself. Thank you.
Caroline.
Thank you. Can I ask Highways about they raised about 2 wide lorries going down the road? Because I can understand it's 4.8 the road narrows to, but there have been concerns raised about 2 lorries going past. I wonder what the answer, if you can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith, for your question about the width of the access road and our recommendation on the access width. The access is 5.5 metres at the junction with Old Forest Road, and then it narrows to 4.8 metres, as you say. It's important to refer to our guidance here in the Living Streets document, which is Wokingham's guidance for new developments. The Living Streets guidance recommends that 4.8 metres is the minimum width for a new development with 50 dwellings. Now, we're at 53 dwellings here. But it'd be very difficult to say that 4.8 metres is not suitable if we go very slightly over that 50 dwelling threshold. Turning to your question about the width of vehicles and two large vehicles passing each other, we've had tracking done that shows a refuse vehicle can pass a car. Now, the refuse vehicle that we use at the council is 2.25 metres wide. I've just been showing some of your colleagues that on a sheet of paper. A modern delivery van, such as a Mercedes Sprinter, is 2.35 metres wide. So if you add 2.25 and 2.35, you reach a width of 4.6. So admittedly, it is narrow, but the vehicles will be able to pass each other at a slow speed, and the likelihood of a refuse vehicle needing to pass a delivery van is very low, given a refuse vehicle will only need to visit the site once a week, and it will only be on site for, an hour in the morning, fairly early in the morning, at which point it's quite unlikely to encounter a delivery van. I should add that that is the maximum width of our refuse vehicle, and that there are smaller refuse vehicles on the market should the refuse collector have any issues with the width of the access.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as the officer was talking, a piece of paper was handed to two other members. I'm sure that was just by way of explanation. The officers explained it a little bit. But it's very important if papers are being passed around and made available to all members of the Planning Committee. I don't think there's any harm. And also, if members have got questions of officers, they need to do it in a public way so everyone can hear what's going on. So what I would maybe invite is this to be passed around. It's about the waste vehicles. To members of the committee, so you can take it into account and you can clear up with any questions later on.
Thank you, Neil. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. Looking at the manual for streets, which I think is a Department of Transport publication, it gives the maximum width of a lorry as 2.5 metres, which is slightly bigger than your 2.25 for your bin lorry. But it does show 4.8 metres is sufficient to allow a lorry and a car to pass. Is the Wokingham guide you refer to in accordance with the DFT guidance?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith. The Wokingham guidance is consistent with manual for streets and the 4.8 metre width for two vehicles to be able to pass each other.
Moses.
Right. Before this meeting, I was going to ask if the council considered asking the developer to bargain with the owner of the property that's supposed to be private on the NDR. But coming here today, there's a claim that the property belongs to the council. Is that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. The land is owned by WBC Estates. They are just like anybody else who owns land, any other landowner. To be quite candid, they seek best value. So there's no different for you or I owning that strip. Special allowances aren't made to facilitate development. It's an impartial, albeit under the council's corporate umbrella, third party in that respect. So yes, it is owned by the council, but unfortunately they operate in a very similar way to any other landowner out there, and they cannot prejudice for a success of an application from, again, another third party.
Carol.
Thank you. It was mentioned by one of the residents about the balconies, and I think that refers to the the flats at one end of the application site. As far as I can see, the balconies are on the rear and front elevations, limited, not all of them. I just wondered what the consideration was for overlooking these.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So within the committee report, I've essentially measured the separation distances from every possible dwelling, essentially within even a near proximity to the development site itself. So just to provide a frame of reference, there were some comments in relation to overlooking of gardens. Now, our board design guide anticipates garden length. So to put in perspective, 2-story to 2-story back to back is 22 meters. That is informed by 11 meters and 11 meters of garden space. A degree of intervisibility of garden space is what the PDG anticipated when it was drafted initially. But notwithstanding that fact, we are looking at, I do have this here, between 63 and 67 meters, which is over double of the requirements within the bar design guide for 3-story form. So following our own guidance, there is no technical reason to raise concerns, and it's been comprehensively addressed within the committee report. If that helps, Councillor, thank you.
Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if Highways could talk a bit more about the footpaths on Old Forest Road, because I must admit that when we visited the site, I didn't notice what Imogen has brought to our attention about those footpaths, and that being the main route for pedestrians to access services.
Yep, thank you for your question about the width of the pedestrian footpaths, Councillor. Our professional view is that they're of adequate width for pedestrians to connect to the surrounding footpath network, given the low level of footfall in this area. And you've got to bear in mind that pedestrians will be spending a relatively short amount of time on Old Forest Road before they then travel along Toutley Road, Loafer Road or Commons Road, which will have wider footways. And it's important to bear in mind the collision record of the surrounding roads. Now, the collision record for the last 5 years for Old Forest Road shows no collisions resulting in injury. That's no collisions resulting in injury to pedestrians, vehicle users, cyclists, road users of any type. So it'd be very difficult to refuse this application on highway safety grounds.
Mike?
Thank you.
Got 3 questions, but my first is following on from what Catherine has just said. There are a number of existing properties all the way along Forest Road. I don't know whether the officers can suggest how much of an additional percentage the 53 dwellings add to the existing properties, because that would give you a measure of the additional foot traffic maybe. So how many properties are there on Old Forest Road now, and how much does the new building represent as a percentage addition?
I haven't gone down and counted every property, I'm afraid, Councillor, but densities might be quite useful for that potentially. So, for example, the application site achieves density of 33 dwellings per hectare. To put that in perspective, Wayside is, I do have this here, so I shan't misquote, is 42 dwellings per hectare, so it's a lower density.
Wayside is the...
It's to the west. That's correct, sir, yes. And Ashton Road to the southeast, that's 40 dwellings per hectare. And the site achieves 33, which is a moderate density, lower than those two. To be entirely transparent, the dwellings along Old Forest Road that are directly adjacent to the application site, that achieves an uncharacteristically low density of 13 dwellings per hectare. So there is great variety, but I'm not sure if that helps. But yeah, apologies, I haven't counted all the houses there myself.
It was a question that occurred to me whilst Catherine was speaking.
If I could come in on that matter, I'd just add that the existing pedestrian demand on Old Forest Road isn't just determined by the existing number of dwellings on Old Forest Road. There are dwellings further southeast on Loafer Road, Commons Road, and residents from the wider Embrook area can use that road at present.
Thank you. My kind of thinking was, is it a doubling or is it 5% or somewhere in between? Anyway, but move on because we don't have the number. Wokingham Borough Council has agreed from its ownership point of view, to allow access across its ransom strip. And presumably Woking Borough Highways are quite happy that that can exit and entrance can be used for construction vehicles, which are quite large, ponderous and slow. So safety of vehicles turning in and out of the site at that point is not an issue, presumably. In your negotiations over the 106 agreement and other discussions with the client, because I understand this has taken quite a couple of years or so to get to this point, was at any time the use of that entrance considered for the main vehicle entrance and egress, disregarding who owns the ransom strip and how much they might want for it?
Thank you, Councillor. In essence, it was never proposed as an option. So I was the officer that worked through the pre-application process. The pre-application advice dictated we needed a safe access point. The applicant has achieved a safe access point. It matches the roadway and connection that the LPU states. That there would be no reason, it would fail to meet any reasonable test for a legal agreement condition to suggest an alternative when what we have in front of us is entirely usable, unlike the pedestrian footpath, which we needed to secure separately, given the fact that that could only be afforded over WBC land. And just very quickly, the use of the ransom strip wouldn't be for pedestrian use necessarily. It would only be a ransom strip if that was the only access that's feasible to the site. What we have is a feasible access within the applicant's ownership. And we've determined it on that basis.
Third question. My understanding is that to avoid damage to tree roots in the preferred access route, you're going to build up, as in there's a no-dig exercise. If I've understood it correctly, and from I think it's in the report somewhere, at the driveway to the house right at the end, whose name I forget, Oakley Cottage, the roadway is approximately 250 millimetres above that driveway. How are you going to stop the runoff of any rainwater deluging that property?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Just bear with me one moment, I do have notes on that. Yes, so essentially a low height curbing will be proposed on the edge of the footway, and that will minimise crossfall. So essentially the camber of the roadway will divert water, surface water, into a channel, which is shown on the revision C plan of the drainage strategy, and that should be in the committee pack. I think it might be a separate plan, Councillor. It's a drainage plan in there. Essentially, it will run along the access road, and the levels of the road will achieve that.
Wayne, go ahead.
I feel that it's a shame that we've got here this evening. I really do, because, and this is not pointed at you in any way, shape or form, Ben, but distribution roads across the borough were meant on the basis of creating communities around such roads. We've heard from the residents, we've heard from the local members, we've got no issue with the housing, it's just the access. So Wokingham Borough Council have agreed a footpath across their ransom strip, but they won't agree an entrance, which I think is ridiculous. But we are where we are. And I can understand why these residents are upset, because it makes absolute sense. I went there with Martine today, and you almost look at it and you think, that entrance on the distributor road was built for this development, not coming off between some residential houses down a narrow strip, cutting down some TPO trees. But again, I'm not having to go at you, Ben. I'm upset with the estates department for not allowing a serious negotiation to happen on that ransom strip, and I think is a real shame.
Mike, go ahead.
I didn't think I heard that they'd refused. I just heard that they hadn't been considered. It hadn't been considered. Not the WBC property ownership or whatever it is, assets, had disagreed or refused.
Yes, you're entirely right, Councillor. The estates team wouldn't have been approached because we have a safe access that's proposed. Just quickly, just to dwell on the NDR application itself for the land opposite Wargrave Road. Sorry, apologies. The land opposite Old Forest Road. In the 2019 committee report, as of the 8th of May, the west of Old Forest Road section of the NDR is an essential piece of infrastructure associated with the planned housing growth in the North Woking strategic development location, the 1,500 units. It's been referenced to CP20. Again, CP20 of the core strategy outlines the fact that within the area identified of North Wokingham, the NDR was put forward to self-serve a major strategic development that would not have been acceptable without it. This does not mean that every piece of infrastructure, every new development that happens within the proximity of the NDR must feed directly in it. There's no policy requirement for that. And on the contrary, given the two-way traffic and how easy it is to connect to the NDR, residents would have the same benefits of using the distributor road as a distributor road without benefiting from direct access from it. Nor would it be reasonable for officers to request that on the basis that we have a perfectly safe access, which has been demonstrated to work, has limited and localised character harm, and has limited tree loss. And from my experience at committee, it's my 14th committee this evening, we've had much smaller developments lose much more trees with positive resolutions. This is not unique to the site in the slightest.
I'm now confused because I thought you said, like anyone, you know, like me, like you, if we're negotiating land and we're negotiating the value of the land, you said that the estates department would be like anybody else. I took that to mean that they didn't negotiate a price for that access. Now, if you go there, like we did today, there is a ready-made entrance onto that distributor road. So I can't understand, for the life of me, under common sense rules, waking up and thinking, why on earth would they have not discussed this with Wokingham? Again, I'm not having a go at you. I'm having a go at the who. If that hasn't been discussed, I'm not surprised. I'm super surprised in the first place because it makes no sense. And I understand what you're saying about, no, it's not policy, but we've got examples of Observer Way in Arborfield, where that new road went in, and you've got entrances coming off that, and it was deemed that it's part of a good network to come onto that. And today, when I was there, and you were with me, I mean, we went along there, it was lovely, lovely road, you know, and it would make a good access point for a new housing estate. But again, Ben, you've got to deal with what's in front of you. I get that, but I'm just upset that that negotiation hasn't taken place. And we've got here this evening with these people telling us, including members, the Wokingham Town Council, the Borough Councillor, saying to us, look, you know, they understand the development's going to go there, they accept that, but not with this access road. But we've got to determine it with what's in front of us.
Thank you to my colleague Ben for picking up answers on the policy position. I just wanted to reiterate my advice on the safety position and what is proposed and what is in front of us. And I would recommend that you don't refuse permission on what is proposed, because the width of the access is acceptable as per our Living Streets guidance. The visibility from the site access councillor is deemed acceptable in accordance with the manual for streets. So the developer has completed a speed survey on Old Forest Road, and the visibility displays demonstrated are compliant with table 7.1 of the manual for streets and with the recorded vehicle speeds. In addition to that, the collision record is no collisions resulting in injuries to highway users in the past 5 years. So in terms of applying industry standard guidance and complying with both local and national guidance in terms of the width and the visibility, we consider the proposed access as acceptable. But I do appreciate your concerns about other access points.
And you make some very good points. But when you go to highway school, And when you're developing this piece of land, if somebody come to you and said to you, oh, where do you think the best way of an access road? They wouldn't have picked that one, they would have picked that one. Of course they would, but I get what you say.
Moses.
I'm just trying to latch onto what Wayne said, because we have a situation here. I'm not saying it's not private. The council is the principal, and they were supposed to be the one to encourage bargaining to use the other assets. I'm just wondering why that bargaining never took place.
I didn't particularly want to get into the viability of the scheme, but we certainly are where we are. We have a scheme with a full financial viability assessment that even using the access road, which again is safe and perfectly fit for purpose, we have a scheme which is marginally unviable and can provide 40% affordable housing through negotiation only. If you apply the, I'll get the correct case law if I can. Just Stokes Cambridge. Yeah, so Stokes Cambridge, a 33% uplift in land value arises from a ransom strip. Now, we need houses delivered in Wokingham Borough, acceptable houses on update sites. We need affordable housing in the borough. If we'd like to forsake that for an alternative access, which is 33% of development value, there is a significant detractor away from any developer ever being interested in delivering this site. There's no requirement for the chat to happen when we have a safe access, and it would prevent the development coming forward, ever.
Sorry, Ben, I'm not arguing against the economic benefit of development, but surely social welfare and social benefits means that when you are doing a development, you go for the one with the least harm so that your net social benefit is better.
Thanks, Moses. I think that would sort of returning a little bit to the LPU's position, the emerging LPU's position. This is a sort of strategic and a viability issue at the place making and the plan making stage. And obviously we have in front of us a proposal that does not contradict the LPU's aspiration for an access off the Old Forest Road. It's very clear. It's preferred access off Old Forest Road. It is not asking for preferred access off the Northern Distributor Road. If it did, then the conversation would be very different. But we are, with recognition to public observations made, we would ultimately be contradicting our own emerging LPU aspirations for the site against technical highway officer advice and pursuing a proposal which is not in front of members tonight.
Mike.
Slight tangent. 8.32 on page 48 talks about trip generation, suggesting that there would be 31 two-way vehicle trips in the morning and 27 in the evening. So this is a car going out and coming back. There could be 27 cars going out and 27 cars coming back in the morning, or 31 in the morning, 27 in the evening. Has that? It says that the forecast is using surveys of comparable residential developments contained in the TRICS database. Has that been verified with actual counting of vehicles? Do you know how much of the database has been verified?
Yeah, thanks for your question about the TRICS database, Councillor. The vehicle trips are counted by employees of the TRICS organisation who undertake video surveys at similar developments. In fact, I think they're actually ANPR surveys now where they register the car's number plates. And then, yeah, all of those sites are, they're selected on a strict process.
Thank you.
Okay. Mike, go ahead.
8.13 says the local highways authority has secured agreement on the site plan that provides a priority system and a speed table within the site. Doesn't suggest what this priority system is. How would that work, please? To presumably keep vehicle speeds down, and would it apply to the access road?
Yep. Yeah, the priority system is proposed about 100 metres into the site away from Old Forest Road, and it's just proposed at a point where there's a tighter bend on the internal site layout, and therefore forward visibility is restricted. So what we've done is we've agreed a priority system with the applicant, which ensures vehicles will stop at a point where they can see oncoming vehicles, and there's also a speed table proposed at that point, which will force vehicles coming into the site to slow right down, and therefore vehicles will be travelling at a speed that the vehicles giving way can anticipate and give way to.
Any further questions? So basically, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So just to clarify, on the drawing I'm looking at, proposed access arrangements, I can see there's a give way for vehicles coming off the site on the sharp bend. Is the speed table more or less opposite Oakley Cottage? Is that thing?
Yes, I think your understanding is correct, councillor.
So there's a speed table just before you get to that sharp bend.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you consider it's possible to put a speed restriction further down where it's still 5.5 metres width?
We can consider that, councillor. The site will still have to go through a detailed technical approval process.
The document that was being passed round, I haven't seen it.
So we have an application in front of us of 53 dwellings, 40% of affordable homes. It's in the draft local plan allocation. It means that for the principle of development, it has gone through some sort of plan-making process. Well, a rigorous process compared to all the other ones we've had in the past. There was a good mix of houses. The density is lower than some parts of the nearby residents, but there's a variety of density in this street. We've discussed the highways. I think highways has no objection to this access. There are cycling and connecting footpaths, but I recognize maybe the frustration of the audience and some of the members that an alternative one was not maybe considered, but at this stage, this is the only one we have in front of us, so we can only look on this ones. Landscaping and trees, there's been no objection from WBC tree and landscape officers. It will impact some trees, but that is the benefits, the harm of that one needs to be seen in terms of also of the benefits, which in our case is 53 dwellings with 40% affordable homes at a sustainable location. There's been no objections from flooding and drainage. Does anybody agree with those points with the planning officer? In which case, I'd like to propose to go with the planning officer, if I have a seconder, and then we'll have a vote on that one, if that's okay. Could I have a seconder for a proposal? Carol? Could I have a show of hands for? Those against? None against. Those abstaining? 2 abstaining. Thank you all. Thank you, Ben.
Chair, just to let you know, and members of the planning committee, that it's Ben Hindle's last planning committee as he is leaving the council before the next planning committee. So just thought I'd notify members of that, and Chair, Vice Chair.
You guys ready to go to the next one? Yeah. Okay, then I would take this opportunity before we go to the next one to thank Ben for all his hard work and support for this committee. It's, you know, we've had to face all difficult challenges and not easy decisions, but Ben has helped us go through it, and we'd like to thank you and wish you all the best in the future. Ben, it's been, yeah, thank you very much. Then we move to the next application. Let me just go there, just get the agenda out.
Ten seconds, Chair, bear with us. Right. Yeah, it's fine. You just.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next application is application number 252138, which is the land east and west of Highden Road in Shinfield. And Abby will give us the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. So this application is for 183 new homes on land to the east and west of Highden Road. So the site is located adjacent to the south of the Shinfield settlement boundary. This slide shows the site in relation to the village centre and in relation to application ref 2484, which is next on the agenda to be discussed, just to give you some context. So the scheme includes 40% affordable housing provision, which is above the council's 35% policy requirement and represents a meaningful contribution to meeting local housing need. The site forms part of the south of the M4 strategic development location and is allocated in the emerging local plan, making it a planned and sustainable extension to the existing settlement. The application includes areas of green space and good connections to Millworth Recreation Ground and Langley Mead Sang. All technical consultees raised no objections, with matters relating to highways, drainage, ecology, landscape and design addressed through conditions and agreed mitigation. So the proposed local plan policies map, which is on the screen, proposes a site for allocation and it will sit within the proposed settlement boundary, being the modest development location of Shinfield. The scheme secures localised widening of Highden Road at 2 points, improving safety and capacity along this constrained corridor. It also delivers a toucan crossing and a refuge island, strengthening pedestrian connectivity between the two parcels and to local facilities. Additional Section 106 obligations secure contributions towards education, healthcare, green infrastructure, biodiversity net gain monitoring and off-site highway works. The Council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing and therefore the tilted balance applies. No adverse impacts have been identified that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the clear social, economic and environmental benefits. Here's some pictures of the scheme in CGI. Officers therefore recommend approval subject to conditions and completion of the Section 106 agreement. Just to draw your attention to the members' note, the appropriate assessment has been slightly amended and is available to view on the Council's website. I've also provided clarification on the required Section 106 in terms of open space and included the SAM contribution and the monitoring fees. And I also want to let you know, not on the agenda, the update, that we have included an additional condition relating to upgrade works to the Black Boy roundabout, and this is to ensure consistency with the next committee item. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Then I would like to invite Mrs. Rogers to speak on behalf of the agent. We have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca. I work at Stantec, the Planning Associate Director. I'm the agent for this application. We've been working with Bloor Homes and the University of Reading for over 10 years as planning consultants. This proposal will deliver 183 much needed new homes, of which 40% will be affordable. The site is an allocation for new homes in the new local plan, which is progressing to examination hearings later this month. We have engaged with officers throughout the determination period of the application to address comments from consultees, officers, councillors and members of the public. Comments from the public have been reviewed and detailed response provided. Where applicable, the layout has been updated to address these comments. The technical reports submitted confirmed that no significant impacts are predicted. In terms of air quality, the Council's EHO is satisfied that the air quality data reflects the most recent information published by Wokingham Council. The data did not alter the conclusion of the assessment. The proposal will not lead to harmful levels of air pollution for nearby residents, and conditions are proposed to control construction activities and ensure compliance with air quality requirements in that regard. The layout has been updated also to pull the development away from existing residents along Highden Road, thereby increasing the distance of separation up to 45 metres. Bloor Homes has also committed to the delivery of a 2-metre high fence along the site boundary to the rear gardens of the homes, and this will be delivered before any construction takes place and will be secured via condition. Significant and robust landscape in this location will also be delivered to provide further screening for existing and future residents. In terms of wider benefits of the scheme, the proposal will deliver widening highway improvements to Highden Road to improve safety for all road users, £55,000 funding for a footpath safety improvement outside of Shinfield Nursery and Infant School, safeguarding of trees and the delivery of a 30-year habitat management and monitoring plan, the delivery of 3 hectares of SANG, generous areas of open space, play space, high-quality pedestrian cycle connections and links with the wider countryside. The development will secure long-term social, economic and environmental benefits, which is reflected in the positive recommendation of the case officer to approve the application subject to conditions and Section 106 obligations. Thank you for your time. I hope members of the committee can support this application this evening to deliver much-needed new homes for Wokingham Council.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now, Andrew, as the ward member.
Thank you. I'm just going to be very brief with this. I mainly just want to speak to ask if the committee to consider the recommendation C, I think, on this. I think the fact that the development has there's lots of parts of the development I welcome. The fact there's 40% affordable housing, and that there's been alterations to design to include the pedestrian crossing. But I think the thing that is most important to residents, given that the large amount of development which has happened in Shinfield recently, is that the infrastructure makes sure it keeps up. So I think the recommendation C just helps make sure that things like the 40% is definitely locked in and doesn't risk being watered down further down the road, and that there's the assurance that the infrastructure is delivered as promised. There is one concern which was mentioned by residents about the air quality monitoring, and the concern that the monitoring details in the papers aren't necessarily completely reliable for construction, and the ongoing traffic due to the lack of monitoring stations nearby, which suggests that some of it, particularly for the smaller particles, are more estimates rather than accurate with that. And I'd maybe ask that that's considered as well. But my main ask is that it's considered for recommendation C. Thank you.
Thank you. And Wayne, go ahead.
Well, I was just picking up on the point that Councillor Gray made. This has been an issue that some of the, especially Highden Road, the widening. So let's just make sure under this 106 agreement that it does get done, because it has been an issue for a long, long time.
Thank you. We agree. We've made sure that we've included it in the committee report. We refer to it in the heads of terms as part of the recommendation, and there are detailed drawings included as part of the transport assessment to ensure that this happens. And we've made that very clear to the applicant that that will be expected.
Catherine.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to see some of the recommendations in this, and I was particularly pleased to see that there is S106 money for the Laley path to the infant school footpath. Now, that should have been funded by a previous development. What I am now worried about is that there is not a continuous footpath along Highden Road on, well, if you come out of the pedestrian entrance to this, the eastern parcel, I'm not worried about the western parcel. If you come out of the entrance to the eastern parcel and turn right towards Shinfield, there is no footpath for 100 yards. I haven't paced it. I've only driven past it recently. So you've got to cross the road. You're on the other side of the road. You're going to Shinfield. You get to where the footpath ends on that side of the road, and you've got to cross back again. Has that been considered?
I think what's important to note is that the application has no requirement to improve the existing situation along Highden Road, but it is. So it's including 2 crossings between the 2 parcels to improve the pedestrian crossing points to the other side. There's also connections to the Shinfield Meadows development, which provides alternative pedestrian routes, which wouldn't result in you having to go back and forth depending on where your end destination is. But I think Ben's looking like he wants to.
Yep, thanks, Abby. I just wanted to highlight that we have agreed the provision of a signalised toucan crossing between the eastern and the western parcel. So residents will be able to push the button, use that, and then travel northwards along the western footway on Highden Road. And as my colleagues just highlighted, there's a separate footpath connection through north of the site to Millworth Lane, which then comes out. So there won't be any need for pedestrians to walk along the roadside or in the road.
Well, we've already had a desire path made from the Laley path entrance to the infant school. I mean, I've been campaigning for that to be made into a proper path for 2.5 years now, possibly longer. I can see a desire path being made along where there isn't a footpath, that 100 yards or whatever it is, on the right-hand side of, the eastern side of Highden Road. Because I can just see people nipping out of the pedestrian entrance and in fact, as I was driving along today in the dusk, I could kind of see that the grass might have already been trampled down a bit, so people already possibly do it.
Without seeing it close up, it's difficult to answer, but I don't believe there's a footpath that directly falls next to the highways access at Langley Mead Sang car park. So that would, and I don't think if there's one proposed, so I don't think that would encourage people to, because you'd have to walk along the road to get onto that part of the grass verge. Does that make sense?
I don't mean that. I mean, if you come out of the pedestrian access, which is near the Toucan crossing, which is where you're saying that people will cross over the Toucan crossing and get over onto the Shinfield Meadows side, which is fine, but most people who are heading to the infant school or St Mary's from that side of the eastern parcel will want to go up the road. They won't want to go round by Millworth Lane, or certainly not all the way through Shinfield Meadows, I would have thought. I'm just envisaging that people take the shortest path, and they clearly have been taking the shortest path in a very similar area. I'm just sort of envisaging this knock-on effect of we do a development and we forget something, so then we have to fund that something from another development. And I'm just seeing that, you know, we're just going to have this domino effect.
No, I completely appreciate your comment. It is difficult because it's not for the developer to address that aspect. We are obviously improving the pedestrian access, as you note, at the school. We have also pushed for the 2 crossings to try and encourage that movement onto the safer side of the path, and you'd hope that parents and people using that footpath will make a safe choice. But we have looked to get the best possible option for pedestrian access into the centre of Shinfield.
Mike.
Just had a look up where Millworth Lane is, because I don't know the area well enough to understand that. You have a footpath entrance connecting to the recreation ground. Would it be reasonable for people to walk through the recreation ground to get to either Shinfield St Mary's Junior School, which is at the end of Millworth Lane, or go up Millworth Lane, then to cross the road to the infant school? Would it be useful to have a crossing at Millworth Lane if there isn't one already? I can't remember.
No, that's fine. As part of the scheme, we have secured a footpath over a ditch. So it's a little footbridge, which we have requested details of as part of the, I think it's either the CEMP or the LEMP, to ensure that there is safe access into Millworth Lane. And we worked alongside the developer to make sure there's lots of access points across the site to give pedestrians the shortest routes through the site and into Shinfield.
Mike, go ahead.
Slightly different question. I think when we met on site, you made the point that the southern boundary of the eastern parcel would delineate the end of Shinfield from a development point of view and give a clear separation from wherever the bit is further down, Swallowfield, presumably, or Spencer's Wood?
No, Spencer's Wood.
Spencer's Wood. I note that a property called something or other Stud, Burley Lodge Stud, is currently for sale at £3.5 million, which is 155 acres, which is next door. What is the likelihood of that being developed? It says it's an investment opportunity.
I can't comment on the sale of a site next door. Obviously, I showed on the presentation that the proposed local plan suggests that this will be the edge of the development. We can't speak for future plans, we can't speak for future developments put forward, but we worked with the applicant and our landscape officer to try and provide a really strong edge to Shinfield. There's obviously other policies that protect the land between Shinfield and Spencer's Wood to ensure settlement separation, so that any application would be assessed against those policies, but we made sure that the applicant made changes to the scheme to provide a strong settlement edge that provides a good transition into the countryside.
I had a quick question. You know, we have the tennis courts there. What are we doing sort of to protect that part a little bit, the interfaces with that one?
Yeah, we again, we worked with the developer to ensure that we've got a boundary plan conditioned as part of the scheme, and along the 15-metre buffer to Tanner's Copse is a knee-high post and rail fence, I believe it is, don't quote me on that, to discourage access into that woodland. And that's the same for the high copse on the west side, although that's protected by a natural ditch as well.
So there is some separation. So the interface helps protecting those areas. Okay.
Yeah, we ensured all development was pushed away from the 15-metre buffer, including suds, to discourage footfall into the ancient woodland.
Thank you. Mike, did you have a question?
I was just going to ask this more or less the same question. One of the comments from one of the respondees was they wanted clarity about the protection of the woods, but it was unclear what clarity they wanted. Do they want to keep it out, or do they want to provide access into it?
We're trying to prevent people from going into an ancient woodland because it's a high quality ecological and landscape value. Does that answer your question?
No further questions. So just to recap, we've got here land. We've got 183 dwellings, 40% affordable homes. It's in the draft local plan allocation. The density of 35, which is diversity of housing types. Provided much needed affordable housing, 40%. There's no objections from highways, no objections from our drainage engineers or from the ecology and the trees. So what I'll do is I'll propose to go with the officer's recommendation. Oh yeah, just there are these two additional conditions. Before I just one, which is condition.
It's just the one additional condition. It's not in the members' update, which is why I mentioned it, but it's to do with upgrades to the Black Boy roundabout. It's included on the following agenda item, and it's just to ensure consistency across the two.
Yeah.
It's just for the record, if there's an additional condition, it's probably helpful to have that read out in full before the committee goes to a vote, so everyone's absolutely crystal clear on what they're voting on, please.
I think that's let's do that. Very good.
I've got it, yeah. So the condition is no more than 50 dwellings of the development hereby permitted shall be occupied until the off-site highway improvement works to the Black Boy roundabout have been completed and are operational in accordance with the scheme submitted to and approved in writing by the local highway authority under a Section 278 agreement. And the reason is to ensure that the necessary off-site highway works required to mitigate the impact of the development and to secure safe and suitable access for all users are delivered in a timely manner and to an appropriate standard in accordance with core strategy policies CP3 and CP6.
Thank you. I believe we have the same one for in the next case. Yeah. Okay, so I'll propose this one. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, did you say 50 dwellings completed or 50 dwellings sold? It's not necessarily the same thing.
I said 50 dwellings occupied.
which is my ignorance probably. On flooding, it talks about everything is in flood zone 2, and that there's 1,000, 1 in a 1,000 plus 40%. So that is 40% on top of the 1 in 1,000 flooding eventuality.
Without looking, I'm not sure. I know that the site has very, very minimal flood zone 2 right on the far eastern boundary, but all of that part of the development is open space, and it's nominal. There should be a clip from the, yeah, that's the one. So it's just that tiny, tiny bit on the eastern boundary that's in the flood zone 2.
My one and only attempt to walk on Langley Mead was thwarted by the fact it was flooded very, very near to the car park. Thank you.
Sam?
Yeah, just final comment to say, yeah, looking at this application, I feel like I sort of agree with the officer's recommendations. I think, it'd be really great to see 76 affordable homes for families in our borough. I think much needed at the moment. And great to see the S106 money go towards some good projects in the community.
So if I propose, would you second, Sam? Okay. Then we'll go for a vote. Anybody, everybody for it, please raise their hands. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Chair, if you can just give us a couple of minutes to set up and swap over, thank you.
Apologies, sir. Just sorting some technical issues. Good evening, everyone. This is planning application 2424A4 for direction of 191 dwellings along with public open space, access, landscaping, supporting infrastructure, and associated works. The site is located adjacent to the settlement of Shinfield, to the north of Arborfield Road and the west of the Eastern Relief Road, bounded by residential development to the north and western boundaries. The site is currently comprises grassland. This is the site seen in the context of the Shinfield Village Centre and the application to the east and west of Highden Road, which has just been presented. The scheme includes as well 40% affordable housing provision, which is above the council's 35% policy requirement, but within the provision set out in the emerging local plan, and represent a meaningful contribution to meeting local housing need. It also includes on-site parking, which is in accordance with the council's parking standards, and approximately 25% of the site is provided as public open space, which will be provided mainly to the eastern edge, eastern boundary of the site. The proposed local plan policies map within the emerging local plan proposes a site for allocation, and the proposed settlement boundary would result in the application site being allocated within the modest development location of Shinfield. As you can see, it will be included within the settlement boundaries. The proposal will secure new pedestrian and cycle links within the site north to south, but also along Arborfield Road, connecting to the wider settlement of Shinfield and to the future Loddon Garden Village, as well as a broad highway mitigation package, including new island crossings on Arborfield Road and Hollow Lane, improvement to bus stops, and to existing pedestrian crossings at Cutbush Lane and to the Eastern Relief Road roundabout, and also improvements to the Black Boy roundabout. These will all be secured through conditions or as part of the Section 106. Additional Section 106 obligations will secure contributions towards education, healthcare, green infrastructure, and biodiversity net gain monitoring. These are illustrative street scenes of different parts of the site. And this is an illustrative CGI. All technical consultees have raised no objections with matters relating to highways, drainage, ecology, landscape, and design addressed through conditions and agreed mitigation. As mentioned in the previous scheme, the council cannot demonstrate currently a 5-year housing land supply. Therefore, the tilted balance is applied. No adverse impacts have been identified that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the clear social, economic, and environmental benefits of this proposal. Officers therefore recommend approval subject to conditions and the completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adrian. Then I would like to invite either Nick or Peter or This is you, Mr. Patterson? Yeah, okay, you got 3 minutes, Peter.
Sorry, there we go. Good evening, Chair, members. My name is Nick Patterson, Planning Director at Stantec, and I speak on behalf of the applicant Bellway Homes in support of this detailed planning application for 191 homes, including 40% affordable homes, in excess, as you've heard, of the adopted policy requirement of 35%. As members will be aware, Bellway has been delivering new homes on land immediately to the north, known as Longacre. The site is proposed for allocation in the new Wokingham local plan, which resumes its examination next week, and it is an important part of the Council's own strategy and spatial vision for the delivery of new homes to serve local needs in the borough. As detailed in the officer's report, the proposal includes a mix of house sizes and types, including terrace, detached, semi-detached family dwellings, as well as 1 and 2 bed apartments blocks at a density of around 35 to the hectare, with access both from the development to the immediate north and a new junction on Arborfield Road. Policy 1 of the Shinfield Neighbourhood Plan advises development adjacent to development limits will be supported where the benefits outweigh adverse impacts. This development represents a positive opportunity for delivery of new homes in a location expressly supported by the new local plan and will boost the council's supply of homes, thus help addressing the shortfall in 5-year supply. Accordingly, there's a very strong basis for supporting this development, which responds directly to housing need. Shinfield is a sustainable location to accommodate new homes, benefits from a range of facilities and services, many of which have been improved as part of the South of M4 SDL proposals in recent years. And notably, Shinfield is served by a number of high-quality bus services within a short walk of this site. The proposal is also a very short walk from the community and retail facilities at School Green. The development includes new landscaping, public open space, a trim trail, benefits from the existing children's play area on its northern side, and also includes a cycle route running through the site. Over 10% biodiversity net gain will be provided on site, and SANG will be delivered locally to serve the development. The development will make financial contributions to both education and healthcare provision, as well as supporting off-site outdoor sport and allotment provision and local highway improvements close to the site. In summary, as your officer report concludes, this high-quality development offers substantial benefits. The proposal supports the council's supply of homes and affordable homes and seeks to deliver a site identified by the new local plan, consistent very much with the spatial vision and strategy promoted by this council. I fully endorse the officer's recommendation to the committee and hope that the committee will support this important contribution to the delivery of high-quality new homes within Wokingham Borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Can we, Andy, you're up for part two.
Yes, going to be very similar to what I said before, because I think it's, but essentially I'd like to put forward the preference to the alternative recommendation of option C, which again will just make sure that section 106 is secured and all those things included. I welcome the 40% affordable housing in the development and the other things which have been mentioned within that, like the previous development. So just be, that just having that security that all those things will be delivered in a timely fashion as well, I think will be is going to be key to the residents in Shinfield with all the other development around. One of the other concerns which I think would be worth considering is residents have raised the issue of the traffic calming along the main spine road. I know there have been some things put in place, but I think there's still concerns that whether that will be enough and whether that will be sufficient. So I would be interested whether the committee can consider that. But thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Chair, if I may, before we start with the questions, you may have seen the members' update. There's a further update is that today we received the updated modelling, hydrological modelling, and that's been submitted to the Environment Agency. So that's with them right now for their review. Hopefully the last one.
So maybe for my clarification, so what is then the next process? So the EA will look at it and then report back if it matches their models. The applicant's model matches or agrees, is in line with the EA's model.
Yes, exactly. The updated modelling shows the same results as the flood risk assessment, and it's that there are no further mitigations that are required. All development is within flood zone 1. So yeah, no further mitigations, but it's now with Environment Agency. Bear in mind the timeline for responses are currently between 4 to 8 weeks, but it's now with them.
Any questions for Moses? Go ahead.
Yes. A question on the flood zone. You said majority of the development is within flood zone 1 and flood zone 2 and 3 is proposed to be used entirely for landscaping public open space. What is the distance between that flood zone 2 and the developments, and what is the risk that those where you say is flood zone 1 could be flood zone 2 with this escalating climate change?
Thank you, Moses. Without getting too technical, obviously I'm not the drainage officer, and sadly we don't have them tonight. The plan that was included in the report shows where the flood zone 1, flood zone 2, flood zone 3 are according to the modelling, and it does show that all of development is within flood zone 1. Distance-wise, I don't remember off the tip of my head, if I'm completely honest, but it would be definitely like over 50 meters from the back of those dwellings that are towards the eastern side and where flood zone 2 is actually. So all that land is currently is proposed as public open space, so there's no risk for those dwellings as shown within the flood risk assessment and has been further demonstrated within the hydrological and hydrology modeling that has been provided by the applicant in support of the application. Hopefully that answers.
So what do you mean by public open space? It's not in use, or it's public open space? It means it can be flooded?
It is public open space, but it's not a vulnerable development. It's landscaping mainly, and if you see within the proposed layout, there's a attenuation basin that's proposed within that public open space, and that's part of the sustainable drainage strategy for the site.
Caroline. And then Catherine.
Thank you. You've mentioned with the previous application, I'm not sure it's a question that you can really answer now. It's not really to do with the planning, it's to do with the roundabout at Blackboy. You talk about improvements. Do we know exactly what they're going to be?
Yes, there's been a couple of issues with the application of this site, partly because the applicant has tried to submit and address elements that are currently under consideration both in the local plan update, the supporting evidence for it, and now the application for Loddon Garden Village. So the pre-application discussions that we've been having and are submitted to the authority for Loddon Garden Village and have formed the basis of the council's evidence at the local plan update all point to a staged improvement. Firstly, what are described as interim improvements at the Blackboy roundabout, which need to occur very early on to enable the medium-term delivery of new bridges over the River Loddon and the M4 into the longer term. That wider package forms the delivery of Loddon Garden Village, but as far as these two applications are concerned, there would be those interim works need to be in place. The local plan evidence suggests that that would accommodate around 1,100, 1,200 homes before the new bridges would be necessary, or that there'd be a different approach to how infrastructure would be delivered and or accommodated. So the suggested Grampian conditions are there to ensure that that does come forward, and if they don't, then that gives the developers reasonable opportunity to come and talk to us about what alternatives might be and deal with that by way of a relaxation of condition and or appropriate planning obligations, given the uncertainty that we face. But that shouldn't be a reason to prevent development, but it will enable us to ensure that the network's operating satisfactorily.
Thank you.
Catherine, did you raise your hand earlier? No. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, again, a really interesting sort of application, and things sort of very similar to the sort of previous one that I'm sort of minded to approve. I think one of the questions I had just before we got to the decision was just around traffic modelling. Just obviously we're potentially proving quite a lot of homes in this area, and just thinking out loud, you know, there's you know, nearly 400 houses, units almost going into this area. What sort of, as a council with highways, any traffic modelling just to look at the impact and what that might look like in a few years' time?
Yes, all of that evidence is already published and is in the public domain. It forms the evidence base to the local plan and has been through the first stage of hearings, wherein a team of inspectors have both acknowledged and responded, tested in public examination the council's evidence to a satisfactory degree, and the inspectorate have supported the council in terms of moving forward to the second round of hearings, which is currently occurring. So with that modelling has already been done, it has tested, and that's where I was saying that the evidence suggests that around 11 to 1,200 houses can be accommodated with the interim works in place. Obviously, in the circumstances, applying the tilted balance, we've taken a proactive stance to say that that obligation can be forthcoming, and that taking account of the scale and degree of plan-led housing delivery, we consider the condition to put a degree of constraint on the scale of development before such times as those works and all the further package can be certain and ensure it's delivered.
Mike.
I think I've read in the report that the intention is that the spine road can accommodate buses. Should an operator wish to run a bus down there, and there are a number of laybys, if I can call them that, for parking as well, but Fallbrook Avenue, which is a bus route through a modern estate, doesn't work terribly well. There's an awful lot of on-road parking. How are you going to stop that happening and causing a problem should a bus go down there, or a bin lorry?
Well, the proposals I'd submitted do preserve the option of operating a bus service through the site and via Shepherd Road and out through the site on the basis that that's part of the option of running bus services in a different way. The bus services do currently run along Hollow Lane, which serves communities on both sides of the road, but obviously this is intended to support a further enhancement of bus services. I think it's fair to acknowledge that bus service viability remains challenging in Wokingham Borough. We are continuing to do what we can to change that, and in some cases that may mean that we look at better services where that's possible. So I appreciate the question and the concern. I think the likelihood of actually running bus services along Shepherd Road and through the development site is fairly limited given the current situation, but that's not to say that we shouldn't be supporting and encouraging the option to preserve that for future options.
Thank you.
I had a question about parking. I noticed the nursery at the corner. There's always a bit challenging for that one. Is that built into our plans?
It does, and that highlights one of the other things that has caused some delay on this application, because the principle of the proposals are substantially agreed. That the approach being taken here is to try and balance a range of different issues. So the developers have quite helpfully proposed a footway cycleway connection across the site frontage. Some of the questions from Highway Authority have been linked to the longer term provision of Loddon Garden Village and how the cycle route would connect through. We've had some challenges in terms of where that route would ultimately go. And across the nursery, we've established that actually the highway boundary does go up to the front door of the nursery. At least our highway records suggest that is the case. And there has been some question as to where there are pinch points along that site frontage. So that's part of the reason why there's a degree of uncertainty about the precise plan, because that remains an ongoing discussion because we've had to dig into that history. So believe that there is a solution that can be had that everybody is content with. It may mean some localised pinch points. It may mean upsetting the nursery, who has seemingly take the assumption that users of the nursery can park over their frontage. We haven't obstructed or prevented that, but obviously moving forward, this would become the key cycle route either to Oakland's in Rice Green, the school, in the short term, but in the longer term, it would be the cycle route to Loddon Garden Village and the secondary school that may well come forward there. So that's why it's been important, and that's why we continue to work with the developers to find the right solution.
Catherine.
And on that, presumably it's not just the cycleway, it's pedestrian as well?
Sorry, certainly, yes. So a shared use footway cycleway.
Mike?
It's really to do with the Black Boy roundabout improvements. Condition 41 says no more than 50 dwellings of the development hereby permitted shall be occupied until the works are done. And I think there's a similar condition applies to the previous application we just considered. So is it 50 and 50, or is it 50 or on one side or 50 on the other side that it has to be done by?
Assuming my planning colleagues do not disagree with me, we've suggested 50 dwellings on both sites. As I said, the assumption that the working hypothesis is that the interim works would need to be in place fairly quickly as part of wider Loddon Garden Village development proposals, but that enables both sites to get on site and start building and occupying houses. But it also gives us around a year and a half to secure and fix that obligation to ensure that it's coming forward.
So just to clarify, so it rather depends on the build rate of the two sites as to when we get to 99 as opposed to 100.
Yes, entirely. Yeah, I think we're trying to be flexible and reasonable in as many ways as possible, respecting the fact that we do need to get on and build houses. It's a plan-led solution. We have a solution in place, just haven't necessarily got all of the details and our ducks in a row to ensure that we can deliver it all satisfactorily now. But there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be able to, hence the Grampian condition.
Sorry, I'm going to labour this point. So if Bloor Homes are really successful at flogging the first 50, but Bellway are not successful, that's going to stop one developer by the problems that are occurring on the other side. That's going to cause a bit of tension, isn't it?
Yes, that is a risk that the two developers are, I believe, willing to accept at this point in time. Obviously, it would be for those applicants to, if they were selling those houses very quickly, to return to us with an application to relax that planning condition and to put forward whatever appropriate mechanisms they think are reasonable that we may agree with to enable us to overcome that obstacle.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have now this proposal in front of us. It's 191 dwellings. It's in the draft local plan allocation. It has 40% affordable homes. There's a good spread of housing, including 4 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and apartments. Density, as was mentioned by Nicholas, 35 dwellings per hectare. There's a diversity of housing. There's no objections from highways. There's no objections from the tree and landscape officer or from the drainage officers. I'm proposing to. I'd like to make a proposal that we go with the officer's recommendation. If I have a seconder, Wayne, thank you very much. And then we'll have a
with the additional condition.
With the additional condition that was the same one that was before. So. Or do you want to say it again? Or?
Apologies, the condition was already included as part of this application.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. So, okay, so then we'll go for a vote. Anybody, all fours? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, Wayne. Then we'll move to our last, but not least, application. which is 240731 Highden Road. Then I was waiting for Nick, but Nick was waiting for me. So please go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks outline planning permission for 20 dwellings at Westwood Yard with layout and access for determination. The site lies within the Arborfield Garrison strategic development location. It's also proposed for residential allocation in the Council's emerging local plan update, and the Finchampstead neighbourhood plan recognises the site as being suitable for new housing. It is relevant to note at the outset that the Council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, meaning national policy requires us to apply the tilted balance. That context forms part of the planning judgment before members. The proposal includes an independently verified viability appraisal, which shows that affordable housing cannot be viably delivered in this instance. This is largely due to the existing use value of the builder's yard and the costs of remediating the site, combined with the necessary infrastructure package to mitigate the development's impact. Turning to the site location, members will see that this is an infill parcel within the SDL. The land forms a wedge between Kingsley Park to the northwest and Finchwood Park to the east, meaning it would be framed by the pattern of the existing settlement. The site is well placed in sustainability terms and is within walking distance of bus stops on the 9 Mile Ride extension and close to the emerging village centre at Arborfield Green, where a range of facilities are or soon will be available. This aligns with the strategic vision of the SDL as a walkable, well-connected garden village. This CGI image shows some of the existing and proposed amenities within the nearby district centre. These include a mixed-use high street, village green, supermarket, secondary school, community building, leisure centre and public house. As members saw on our site visit, the southern part of the site comprises a builder's yard that includes container storage, materials and HGV parking. Although lawful, the use has been subject to complaints about noise over the years. The remainder of the site comprises open fields enclosed by mature vegetation. Redevelopment presents the opportunity to replace an unattractive commercial use with a form of development that better reflects the evolving residential context and removes the potential for future disturbance arising from the commercial use. The layout has been shaped by the site's constraints. Along the boundaries, mature trees protected by TPOs are retained to create a strong established landscape edge. To the southwest, the layout responds sensitively to the setting of Westwood Cottage, a Grade 2 listed building. Spacing and orientation have been arranged so that any heritage effects remain limited and capable of being mitigated fully at reserve matters stage. The proposal for 20 dwellings represents a low-density scheme appropriate to the site's position at the edge of the SDL. The layout is considered to successfully demonstrate that the land can be developed in a coherent and policy-compliant manner. In terms of impacts on neighbouring homes, particularly those along Orwell Drive, separation distances meet the standards set out in the Borough Design Guide. The orientation of plots and the lower level of the site ensure that there will be no harmful overlooking, overshadowing or overbearing impact. Importantly, the proposal would remove the existing builder's yard, which has historically generated noise during unsocial hours. Its replacement with residential use represents a net improvement for the amenity of existing neighbours. These photographs show the existing boundary conditions. A detailed landscape scheme will come forward at reserve matters stage to ensure a high-quality interface with the adjoining Kingsley Park development. This will help knit the two areas together whilst maintaining privacy and visual separation. Vehicles will reuse the existing road access from Shearlands Road as shown on these plans. The most notable element relates to the improvement of the Shearlands Road corridor, which will be secured through a Section 106 agreement. These include traffic calming measures and a new route lit by bollard lighting, effectively creating a safe and attractive pedestrian and cycle corridor linking the site to the Nunmore Ride extension. These measures respond directly to neighbour concerns about walkability and provide a sustainable year-round route to local services and public transport. So to conclude, this proposal would deliver several housing benefits. It replaces an incongruous commercial use with 20 new homes in a sustainable SDL location and aligns with the emerging local plan, allocation and the Finchamstead neighbourhood plan. Technical issues, those of highways, drainage, ecology, trees and heritage are all capable of being satisfactorily addressed at reserve matter stage or through conditions. On viability, an independently reviewed appraisal confirms that affordable housing cannot be delivered while still supporting the necessary infrastructure contributions. Those contributions include improvements to the Shearlands Road corridor, healthcare provision, open space requirements and full SPA mitigation. Given the Council's lack of a 5-year housing land supply, the local planning authority must apply the tilted balance. The limited harms identified are not considered to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the considerable benefits of redeveloping the site and contributing to housing delivery within the borough. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and completion of a Section 106 agreement.
Thank you, Nick. We'd now like to invite Mrs. Milner on behalf of the agent.
Chair, members of the committee, good evening. My name is Robin Milliner from ET Planning, speaking on behalf of the applicant TA Fisher and Sons Limited in support of this outline application for land to the north-east of Westwood Cottage on Shearlands Road, Arborfield. The application seeks outline permission for 20 new homes with only access and layout to be considered at this stage. As this is not a full application, members are therefore being asked to consider the principle of development along with the acceptability of the proposed access and site layout. While detailed matters such as appearance, scale and landscaping would be addressed at the reserve matters stage. The proposal would replace the existing transport yard, which currently operates with unrestricted hours and has historically generated numerous HGV movements and noise complaints from nearby residents. The development would therefore bring a more appropriate residential use to this location. The site lies within the Arborfield Garrison strategic development location and is surrounded by recent residential development at Kingsley Park and Finchwood Park. Importantly, the site is also a proposed housing allocation within the emerging local plan update, meaning that it has already been considered through the plan making process and identified as suitable for residential development. We consider that the principle of development has therefore been established. Finch Hampstead Parish Council also make no objection to the principle of the redevelopment of the site. Turning briefly to design and layout, the density of the development is approximately 15 dwellings per hectare. This is significantly lower than the Arborfield SDL, which typically delivers around 30 dwellings per hectare. The lower density is considered appropriate and reflects a need to respond carefully to the site's constraints, including protected trees, drainage considerations, and the setting of the Grade 2 listed Westwood cottage. Members will note that the scheme has evolved and it has been reduced from the 30 dwellings which were proposed at the Regulation 18 stage to 22 at submission and now 20 before you. And this is following constructive discussions with officers to ensure an appropriate and well-considered layout that considers the constraints outlined. As such, development has been sensitively positioned to retain the majority of protected trees and provide new landscaping and open space. The layout also achieves private gardens with a minimum depth of 11 metres as per the Borough Council's Guide SPD. The proposal will also deliver highway improvements along Shearlands Road alongside Section 106, healthcare provision, open space and mitigation for the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area. Officers have therefore concluded that the proposal complies with the development plan, and for this reason we respectfully ask members to support the officer recommendation and grant outline permission for this emerging local plan allocation. Thank you.
Any questions, Mike? You can start.
So just for my 100% satisfaction, that the layout of the plots and the roads is 100% fixed. So all we're really looking at from an outline point of view is at the end of the day, reserves matters will be what the houses look like, not where they're going to be, not the road access, etc. It's 100% fixed, can't be altered.
That's my understanding.
That's correct, yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So when we did a site visit, we noticed that, and I noticed, that this, you said it's a builder's yard and there's storage of materials and containers. Most of the materials seem to be associated with handling of waste, human waste possibly, as in sewage plant. But also noticed there's quite a number of scrap vehicles, which means there's going to be fuel, lube oil, brake fluid, battery acid, and coolant with glycol in it, etc. Is that not part of, I don't think it's relevant, but I guess that's not necessarily part of the permitted use of the site, but it's going to cause some difficulty in remediation possibly.
So in terms of what the site is allowed to do, unfortunately the history to the site, there's some planning enforcement history, but the use, as I mentioned in my presentation, is lawful. The landowner was able to get a certificate of lawfulness about 5 years ago to confirm that the use had been continuing for a period of 10 years. Essentially, if they can demonstrate that, then the council issues a certificate to confirm that it's been ongoing for 10 years, and at that point it becomes lawful and isn't subject to any conditions. In respect to mitigation of contamination, that's certainly relevant and will be very much necessary for this development to go ahead. So a planning condition has been recommended which will require them to first of all agree a scheme of mitigation with the council's environmental health department, and then to implement and have that scheme verified prior to any dwellings being occupied. So it will be dealt with, but also one of the benefits of the scheme is that, of course, it will be dealt with. yeah, that's something that has been considered.
Sorry. So report item 54 talks about, so the environmental officer advises that further investigation is required to confirm the extent and nature. It doesn't say explicitly how detailed or any particular detail about what that investigation will actually cover. You could do a quick glance through, or you could do a very, very in-depth soil analysis, etc., I guess.
So at the present time, it's not known the extent of any potential contamination, but they will need to agree with the council a scheme of remediation, and that will go into the detail of exactly what will be required. The council's environmental health department will, I'm sure, require that it's all looked at very thoroughly, and you know, everything is fully taken into account and considered.
My kind of worry is if you don't go looking for something, you won't find it.
Yeah, I mean, this has nothing to do with the application, but this site is, well, you know, for the users of this site, there was no application approved by Woking Borough Council. It's happened over the last 10 years, so that's how they get their, you know, lawfulness thing. But the fact that the contamination is happening there is impacting the way, unfortunately, how the planning for this will do it. It's not a material consideration, but it's a bit of a frustration for me that that's the way how it has come.
And just to add, I mean, it will be done very thoroughly, so that there will be soil testing, and they'll go looking for not just one type of contamination, but any conceivable type of contamination, be that through fuel or asbestos or whatever it may be, that will be looked at in great detail.
And Nick, I have a question. So what will happen with this Sherwood Road? And we've seen the entrance there. The road continues. What will happen with that section?
Yeah, so the access into the site from Shearlands Road will become essentially a priority access, and that point northwards there'll be some bollards, demountable bollards, and that will essentially pedestrianise Shearlands Road from that point onwards. It will still be accessible to emergency vehicles. We'll be able to remove the bollards if they needed to, but that is a significant benefit of the scheme because it creates a pedestrian cycle route into the district centre that will benefit. Well, indeed, it's necessary for this development, but there'll also be a side benefit of other residents in the SDL being able to use it too.
And then I have a final question. I know that this is probably still an outline one, so but there are considerations for a pedestrian link with the other side. That will be part of the next development? Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be worth me just clarifying that point because a number of the neighbours have raised that as a concern. When the application was first submitted, a pedestrian link was shown connecting to a private driveway on Orwell Drive, which wasn't appropriate. That's now been revised and is shown illustratively connecting to Orwell Drive, the adopted part thereof. But as I say, it is only illustrative because the scheme is an outline only. Whether or not a pedestrian link is deliverable will be considered at reserve matters stage, subject to any potential negotiations that may need to happen between neighbouring landowners.
And the same goes for the drainage part that will be further detailed in the next phase.
Yeah, so the applicant has submitted a drainage strategy with this application, which has given the council enough confidence to know that sufficient volumes can be accommodated within the site itself. There is a condition, however, that requires essentially the exercise to be reproduced at reserve matter stage once the full landscaping detail is known, to give us absolute confidence that everything works.
Mike.
Going back to that proposed pedestrian link, so that will be part of reserve matters, I guess. So my question is, does Highways get an input onto what that pedestrian link should be? And how are you going to stop people on e-bikes zipping from this estate to the next one or vice versa?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily a highways issue, although I'm sure highways will be involved because it does connect to a highway from a highway, but of course it doesn't go across a highway. In all likelihood, if there were to be a connection, you'd need to have steps just due to the levels difference between the site. But I'm sure that any connection through to Orwell Drive may require Section 278 agreement, possibly, Ben, because that's adopted highway.
Yes, Nick, I can confirm we'd have a Section 278 agreement, and we'd go through a technical process to try and design out any unwanted use by e-bikes. But I think it's important to bear in mind that if it's designed as a pedestrian link and you get unpermitted e-bike use, then that's unpermitted, and that should be dealt with in the same way it's dealt with anywhere else in the borough.
I was thinking actually of not just e-bikes, but Deliveroo type people on motorised transport, one sort or another. You have a particular problem off Shinfield Road with people whizzing through a permitted path.
Well, we can take that concern on board, councillor, and look to design it out during the Section 278 process by including bollards or width restrictors that restrict motorbike use, whilst staying mindful of width requirements for other highway users.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
This is probably my ignorance. You have in the heads of agreement a number of payments. So my journey contribution is £612, and also total contribution from the NHS of 18,000, which comes out at £906 per dwelling. Are these paid as the bill continues, or are these paid up front, please?
The NHS contribution would be paid up front, and the My Journey contribution, if it applied, would typically be paid up front, although it's my understanding that the developer prefers to do their own travel plan instead of My Journey. Oh, sorry, I'll just correct myself there, because I have stated that the My Journey contribution would apply prior to the first occupation. So not prior to commencement of development, but prior to the occupation of the first dwelling, which would make sense because that would be at the point at which people were making use of the My Journey travel plan.
Sorry, and there's a number of other contributions, like the one for the open space, sports recreation, the strategic asset management, and the suitable alternative natural green space. Would they all have to be paid up front too?
If you just give me a moment, give me a moment, I might be able to get you some more detail on that. The Section 106 agreement, we've just got heads of terms at the moment, so we haven't actually negotiated that agreement. We would look to put in place an appropriate trigger as part of the negotiation essentially of that agreement.
Any questions, any remaining questions? Then I would like to propose to go forward with the officer's recommendation for, the 20 houses at this location, 20 dwellings. Do I have a, second? Oh, I'll take Stuart. Yes, thank you, Stuart. Much appreciated. Can I have a vote, everybody who's supporting it? Thank you, that's all. Thank you, that's carried. Before we go, Brian, do you want to give a little update on the status of our performance?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Two points to note. I've actually jumped to the last one first, which is the major appeals performance update. Current reporting quarters reduced by 0.25% to 6.25 for majors. We, at the time of writing, that included the Limmerhill major appeal decision, which was released 2 days ago. So in the next reporting quarter, which is after the 31st of March, that should reduce further because more major applications will drop off at the in the 24-month period. So yeah, there is no risk of us breaching the 10% now or likely in the next monitoring period either. Jumping back to decisions and updates of note, members will have seen that the appeal decision for the land west of Limmerhill Road was dispatched by the inspectorate and it was dismissed. That was a delegated decision refused by officers for 60 dwellings just off Limmerhill Road behind the old leather bottle. Few points to note in there. There's a very brief summary, but the inspector leaned heavily on the design parameters of the proposal, and that was afforded sort of significant weight against the scheme. In a nutshell, the design wasn't. The design would appear poorly related to its surroundings, this failure was basically decisive among other weighted matters. Thank you, Chair.
Then I'll finish the meeting here. Thank you all for everything, everybody, and the contributions, and also the officers. Thank you.